Now, hello everyone. Welcome to the International Social Work Education and Development Online Conference 2021. This is the opening plenary session. Today is 15 January 2021, and it is good morning to some people, good evening to others. And I think those people in Italy are having lunch right now. It's lunchtime, 12 o'clock. Now, what we want to do is we will start the conference by looking at the theme of this conference. Disruption and drastic measures are happening in our world today. We are living in a world of big changes and unprecedented in human history. And so even the Rimini conference was cancelled because of COVID-19, and this online conference aims to empower social workers in the midst of this change, social service organizations to make an impact on the lives of people and in the lives of our community amidst these drastic changes. What we need are measures that will facilitate effective professional practice and human services in the decades to come. But as we look at technology, as we look at change, human relationships is still the core. Human relationships bring joy, meaning to our human existence, and they are not just for survival, they are for our progress as well. And social work education, social work research, social work practice, social services, social policy must respond to promote human well-being. And not just that, we have to foster positive social change and social integration. And so social relationships are vital for both individuals, society to thrive. And I propose that it is the core of our professional intervention. We need social work, social services to build on relationships, whether it is in organizations, it's in a community, or one-to-one in professional relationships. So the key to human relationships, making the future, that will be the way we want to theme this conference. The presentations, the symposiums, the workshops, the poster sessions will highlight the sub-themes: promoting human relationships in a global context, sustainable development goals, social policy in building and enhancing human relationships, minority issues, gender issues, social inclusion, social integration. And all this must build the capacity of social work education, social services, social work research and practice. So we need to launch forward in this decade, and 2021 is a good time to start as we do the reset. The conference has three-pronged. We kick off today with the plenary, and then it gives us time to prepare for the workshops, roundtables, and the regional groupings. And we will launch the poster session by February 19. So we have a very tight timeline. Then we will come into March doing paper presentations and special sessions and have the closing plenary. We will do both asynchronous video sessions. That means the videos will all be uploaded and then people can access at their own time. But we will also bring together presenters in dialogue, in discussion, in networking, so that we will propel change and share ideas that will make our society better. I look forward to your cooperation in sponsoring sessions and programs. And with my co-chair, Professor Shahjahan, we will endeavor to have a great conference where it is not just presentation, it is meeting of minds and networking that will bring forth the 21st century and our time together. So I welcome you to this plenary session of the International Social Work Education and Development Online Conference. And let me now welcome our president for the International Associations of Schools of Social Work, Professor Anna Maria Capanini, who is also the advisor for this conference. Let's welcome Professor Capanini.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is a great pleasure for me to open the International Association of Schools of Social Work and the International Council of Social Welfare joint online conference on the topic that has been presented by Professor Tiong, human relationships, keys to remaking social work for the future. As you know, together with the Italian Association, we planned a conference in Rimini for July 2020. This conference was unfortunately postponed to November due to the COVID-19. But the international situation caused by the virus didn't allow this event to go ahead. It has been really an unpredictable event and a terrible year. Many people have suffered, has died, but also we have seen a lot of solidarity go on in our society, in our communities. And I would like to remind that, as often been said, the word crisis, from the Greek verb krino, to separate, to sort, in a broader sense, to discern, to judge, to evaluate, is taken on a negative meaning in common usage, introducing the idea of worsening a situation. If instead we reflect on the etymology, we can also grasp a positive nuance, an opportunity. The moment of crisis can also be a time of reflection and evaluation, and be transformed into an opportunity for improvement to allow development of new positive situation. For this reason, in the midst of this COVID-19 global pandemic that is going on, we decided not to give up and take the opportunity offered by online technologies to plan this initiative without losing the richness of the abstract presented for Rimini Social Work Education Social Development Conference, but also hosting other collaboration and special sessions that will be organized in conjunction with it. The online conference active schedule spans for 3 months and will be articulated in different steps, as Tiong has underlined. We will kick off Eileen Younghusband lecture today and tomorrow with Boadel Lawrence keynote speech. This will be followed up by the 2 other sessions, one from 16 to 18 February, when a series of workshops, symposium, regional session, and poster session will be offered. And the second one from 16 to 18 March, focusing on presentation and special gatherings that will coincide with the World Social Work Day of 2021. The time scheduling will take also in consideration as much as possible the various time zones where people will be attending from. And of course, we will have also the possibility to listen the presentation in a not synchronous way. The aim of this initiative is to support educators, researchers, social workers, social service organizations, social policy makers in responding proactively to promote human well-being, to foster social integration. We know that social relationship is vital for both the individual and the society, and we need to cultivate it as a precious asset that has to be the first and the most important tool for our profession, both individual and in community practice. As it is stated in the first pillar of the new global agenda, Ubuntu, strengthening social solidarity and global connectedness, social work and social development practitioners and educators have an essential role to connect people, communities, and systems to co-design and co-build sustainable communities and to promote inclusive social transformation, as well as to enhance social network and social solidarity. The basis for social work and social development is to empower citizens through participation, engender social inclusion, and build a human relationship as to promote well-being at all levels, individual, family, groups, and communities. I hope that this initiative will be a fruitful arena and that it will be a forum for sharing experiences and discuss how to take concrete actions to fulfill our mission. Today, we open the conference with the Eileen Younghusband lecture that this year will be offered by Professor Angelina Yuen. Let me say something about the origin of this lecture. Eileen Younghusband, as a social worker at the beginning and then educator, organizer, policy analyst, and consultant, had made a major contribution to the development of social work profession in the UK and in the rest of the world. She was very active at an international level, initially through the British Council and the UN, and from 1950 through the International Association of Schools of Social Work. At the beginning as a board member, then from 1961 to 1964 as a president, and onwards as honorary president until she died in 2008. She promoted high standards of social work education across the globe. And for this reason, since 1984, she's honored by the IA through the biennial Eileen Younghusband Memorial Lectures at the Global IA Conference, when a current social work educator is invited to speak on a topic of relevance to international social work. This year, the Committee of Honors and Award, led by Jidraf Wairire, former president of the African Association of Schools of Social Work, selected Angelina Yuen. Professor Yuen has played an active role in the social work and education community in Hong Kong, as well as in many other parts of the world. Her commitment in the international dimension of social work education is evidenced by her fundamental contribution to the development of social work education in China and Asia for over 40 years. She was the first president of the International Association of Schools of Social Work, elected from the Asia-Pacific region. And during her leadership from 2008 to 2012, Angie has given an important contribution to our association, and she is continuing to offer her support to many different activities. She is deeply convinced that social work education is a catalyst for social change and development, and could be a powerful force in generating hope and transformation for social betterment. I think that no one better than her can present the Eileen Younghusband lecture in this challenging period. Thank you.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna Maria, for presenting me. And I'm indeed greatly honored to receive this this lecture, particularly because Professor Dame Eileen Younghusband helped in the development of social work education in Hong Kong. In fact, she wrote a report in 1971 before I joined social work, and which has influenced Hong Kong's social work, education, and development for decades until now. We are still following her footsteps. So I'm indeed very honored. So today I'm going to share with you the topic on on education for hope and transformation. I think I have to full screen. Okay, so I think this year is an awful year. And according to Time magazine, it calls 2020 the worst year ever since World War II. And New York Post even called it the year from hell. And we have experienced a lot of chaotic situations like the Australian bushfire, the locust plague, the COVID-19 pandemic, the US stock market crash, Black Lives Matter protests, Beirut explosion, US presidential election, and it's all these repercussions, etc., etc. So I think for the whole world, this is a chaotic year. This is a year of loss. This is a year of helplessness and hopelessness. And I think all of us are involved in it, not only in serving our service users, but many of us are involved, and many of us have witnessed a lot of pain and loss and hopelessness. But as social workers, we believe in hope. So today I'm going to talk about the topic, education for hope and transformation. And I'm going to include the following parts. The first part, I'm going to talk about the evolvement of a model of education for hope and transformation developed by our team of colleagues and friends, and how it evolved. Secondly, I'm going to share with you a case study to illustrate how we try to implement it. And that is a 30-year journey in co-constructing social work education and practice in China, together with many friends and colleagues. The third one, very briefly, I'm going to share some personal trajectories of hope and transformation of my students. I have prepared 3 cases, but probably I can only have time to share one because of the time limitation. And fourthly, I'm going to talk about the implications on international social work, reflecting on the experience that I have. And firstly, the evolvement of a model of education for hope and transformation. And I think, as a student in social work, as a social work practitioner, and later as an educator, I always believe in hope and transformation. And I think hope is central to social work. Social work is the profession of hope, and a sense of hope is central to our practice, particularly in times of distress, adversity, tragedy, and hopelessness. And I think we have, throughout our lives, I think we have experienced and seen a lot of tragedies, disasters, hopelessness. And I think social work is a profession that enable us to go on and to spread this message of hope. And what is hope? According to Bodhi in the International Social Work article, they call hope, they say that hope provides people with a vehicle to envisage the future and strength to deal with frustrations, despair, trauma, and adversity in the present. And I like this definition because it talks about the future. The hope gives us a future hope, a future direction. But on the other hand, it also gives us the strength to deal with our present trauma and frustrations. And another very famous definition by Snyder is that hope is the perceived capacity to derive pathways to decide goals and motivate oneself via agency thinking to use these paths. And I like this definition very much because it talks about the 3 core elements of hope. Firstly is the pathway. It provides a pathway, just like the photos that I'm showing. There's a pathway, a direction. And secondly, it has a goal. It has desired goals for us to hope for, to work towards. And thirdly, agency thinking. That is, we as social workers, we as human beings, we are active agents, and we need to use our agency thinking to use this pathway to develop the pathway to hope. And I think as social workers, this is all the more important to develop a culture of hope in our workplace and in working with our service users. And I think many articles, many people have talked about hope in social work practice, and I'm not going to elaborate on it. And whether working with older people, young persons, suicidal cases, mental health issues, etc., etc., a lot has been written and done on how to use hope as a way of helping people to change and search for the direction. But I would like to particularly share two persons who have greatly influenced my philosophy and my direction in social work education. Firstly is Paulo Freire, and he has written the book on pedagogy of the oppressed and many other books, and particularly the one on pedagogy of hope has influenced me greatly because he talked about, and I like the quotes, it says, "There is no change without the dream, as there's no dream without hope." So I think we have to have hope and we have to have dream. And this is what sustains human being in our struggle and in our being. And he also said, without hope, there is no way we can even start talking about education. So education and hope must be linked together because education is a vehicle to evoke hope, and we can help people, help our students and also ourselves to become transformed through education, because education embodies hope. And according to Paulo Freire, and the philosophy of hope is rooted in human beings' consciousness of its own incompleteness, and I totally agree with that. I think it is because we feel that we have incompleteness. There's a void, there's a gap, there's a vacuum in us that is unfulfilled. And because of that we have a constant search for completeness. We try to become complete. We try to search for fulfillment so that we become complete. And I like one of his quotes, and he says that humans, as unfinished beings, are in the process of becoming. We are conscious of our own incompleteness and our status as travelers, seekers, searchers, and pilgrims. And I personally, and I think my students and many others agree, that we're constantly searching and we're trying to contribute something to humanity. And we could do so to become more fully human. And according to Paulo Freire, the hope of education is not so much to instill hope, to give hope, but rather to evoke or to awaken hope among our students, among those that we work together. And we have to evoke hope among them and among us so that we can, facilitate each other to go work towards hope. But in that process, we as educators, we must possess humility, and we have to be humble to work together with our students. And we instill or evoke hope through sharing of our vision, but it is their right, the students' right to adopt contrary positions and develop their own pathway to hope. And also we need to help our students to develop a critical knowledge of reality rather than just being idealized about hope. So hope has to be grounded rather than being empty and unrealistic. And another person that have greatly influenced me and my colleagues is Donald Shawn and his theory on reflection in action. And we are privileged that he visited us before he passed away many times. And then he was the supervisor of one of my team member who was his PhD student. And according to him and Chris Agiris, they pioneered the idea of double loop learning. That is, we should not be satisfied with the single loop learning, which focus on understanding or reflecting on the goals, values, techniques, and results. But he said that we must try to analyze and learn more about the underlying, the why, the underlying assumptions of our beliefs, of our actions, and about what we do. And Sean also proposed that the way of integrating theory and practice is to integrate theory and practice through critical reflection in action. That is, we try to reflect while we are doing things, and through that reflection, we build up our theories and our understanding, so we can develop new practice knowledge in the midst of professional action. And he encourages us to use reciprocal reflection in action research so that we can reflect during our action process. And this process is not just limited to ourselves as teachers, but it is reciprocal because we engage in this reflection together with our students and together with those that we serve. So I think our team, actually our team of colleagues, there are many of them, and I won't have time to mention, but many of them are, we buy in with this philosophy. That is, we believe in action research, and we use action research in our process of integration of theory and practice. And also, Ben has developed, and our colleagues have developed a model on the triple capacity building model. That is, we believe that in the process of doing action research, educators, students, as well as the local people have to be involved in the process. And we, for example, for the educators, they do not just educate, they are also students in the process. As students, they are not only students, but they can be teachers in the process. As local people, they can also be teachers to us. So I think the three parties, that is the educators, students, and local people, are engaged in this process of interaction, of reciprocal reflection in action. And we try to understand the issues. We try to map out the strengths and limitations of our existing practices. We try to construct a new practice framework. We try to experiment and put the new practice framework into practice, and constantly reflecting on the experimentation and try to refine on the framework, and continually refine and revise our model. So I think this process has been extremely useful, and we have been practicing it in Hong Kong, China, and the places that we do social work education. And so we try to combine the theories together. So we believe that we believe in the triple capacity building, that is educators, students, as well as local people are partners in the process of becoming, and in the partner of the process of co-creation. And also we engage in this process of action research. And this process we have been using in our education process in many places, and we find it extremely useful. But I think the most important core is the word hope that we put in the middle, because without hope we are just working around. But hope is the force, the power that drives us into action, and it is because we share the common hope of changing society, changing people, changing policies and structures, etc. So the hope is our motivating force to move us on, to motivate us to engage in the processes. So this is, and also I think the model that we have developed is constantly being revised because it's not static. We constantly engage in reflection on what we are doing and how we can further improve on our process of education and practice. And I would like to share with you about trajectory of hope and transformation. And I personally have gained a lot of insights and learning from this trajectory. And my colleagues will agree as well that they have learned a great deal throughout this process. And this is a journey of co-constructing social work education and practice in China. for the last 30 years, that is from 1988 to 2020, we have been energetically involved. And I think this process has been very revealing and enriching and awakening, and has confirmed, helped me to confirm the importance of hope and the need to do transformation in social work education. And I have no time to acknowledge the contribution of all the partners that are involved, and many are involved, whether they are colleagues from PolyU, from Peking U, and from many universities in Chinese mainland, and our students and our service users, our local people, government friends, etc., etc. Okay, but before I talk about the personal trajectory of the involvement in this process, I would like to give you a snapshot so that you can have some background of what happened in the Chinese mainland. And you know, this is 100 years in one snapshot. So this is brief and maybe overgeneralizing. So forgive me if it is a little bit simple. So in China, social work education was introduced to universities in the 1920s, and firstly to Yanjing University, which is the predecessor of Peking University, and then it spread to many other leading universities in the Chinese mainland. And I would say that during the whole process, the 100 years, hope has been steering this progression. And I can see that many social workers, social work educators particularly, have exhibited and exercised the sense of human agency. And they have been putting a lot of efforts into the process and trying to move and steer the process in order to make something happen. And what they are dreaming and the common hope is to enable the people in their country, in our country, to have better well-being and to enjoy a better quality of life and to have less suffering and have more justice, more freedom, more well-being, more hope and more happiness. So in between 1920s and 1950, many programs were developed and many pioneers have done a lot of things despite a lot of war during the period and a lot of hardship, a lot of poverty during the period. And social work have done a lot during those periods, even though it was a little bit more casework oriented because it was introduced by missionaries and using the foreign model. But still, they have helped a lot of Chinese people to develop a better quality of life. And from 1952 onwards, social work education, and in fact, social work was terminated temporarily because China has turned into a socialist country. And in socialist country, everybody is covered by state welfare and they're working in the state-owned enterprises that have welfare provision. So there's no need for social work according to the leaders. Social work was in a hibernation period, but actually a lot of social workers that was trained in the past, they were still very active. And actually they were instrumental in introducing social work in the 1980s. So in the 1980s, because of the open door economic policy, many previous social workers advocated for the reintroduction of social work education into China, into the Chinese universities, because they think that because of the open door economic policy, there will be a lot of social problems, complex problems that the present system may not be able to deal with. And they need professionally trained social workers to deal with the increasing social problems. And so later on, after searching for 10 years or so, then we come to year 2000. And then I think there was a great surge in the number of social work schools of education. Many social work schools were introduced, and during that period, and social workers were searching for the model that fits China. And many initiatives were developed during that period, including PhD programs, inviting them to study PhD in Hong Kong and overseas, and also PolyU developed MSW program. Hong Kong U also developed one, and there were many other initiatives. And in 2006 came a very enlightening policy, and that is the Chinese government launched a policy to build a strong social work team. By a strong social work team, it means around 2 million people. They want to build 2 million social workers by 2020. But anyway, so that was there was a policy from the Chinese government saying that they want to build a strong social work team to support the development of a harmonious society. I think this and this policy is not only one policy. It is a cluster of policies. It includes the introduction of local social services, and the government provide purchase scheme so that the local social services will be purchased by the government. And we have, they also include the social work qualification examination, whereby practicing welfare workers can sit for the exam and get the qualification. And also in 2009, the China's own MSW program was introduced. And I think there were many reasons why this policy come into being. And I would attribute it to human agency as well. Because I think there were, of course, the social issues getting more complex. The people are having higher expectation, and they would like to receive better quality of care and social services. And also the government has been pretty successful in economic development, and the government would like to contribute more to social development, etc. But I think one of the greatest reasons that contribute to the development of this policy is the active human agency of the social work community in Chinese mainland. And they have advocated for this policy, and they have proved with their work that social work is something that can add value. And also in the year 2008, because of the Wenchuan, the Sichuan earthquake, so it also, many social workers did really great work by, providing needed services and helping the social reconstruction in the disaster area. So that has given the track record, and the Chinese government see social work as a valuable partner in steering this harmonious society. So I think there are many reasons contributing to this cluster of policies. But I personally think that it is because social workers and social work educators in particular have done a great job during that period. And in 2020, I think I would call it a soaring period, because the Ministry of Civil Affairs, there is a new 5-year plan. And according to the new five-year plan, there are a lot of initiatives that support the development of social work in China. And I think one of the very enlightening one is that by the year 2025, that is the end of this 5-year plan, the government wants every part of China to be covered by social work stations. Of course, the social workers might not be as high standard as we might like to expect, but I think it is a step in the right direction. So I think this is a snapshot of the development, and I think that development is quite encouraging. It's very encouraging, and I think this can show that the social work community have done a great job and in steering this development, and I can see that this is hope that has driven them to go forward in this direction. And I would like to share my personal trajectory and my trajectory with my colleagues. And so I would like to divide it up into several periods, whereby we try to work together with our colleagues in China. You might realize that I sometimes call we and sometimes I call they, because I have this mixed identity, and I have to explain a little bit to our overseas friends why this is international collaboration. Because Hong Kong was a colony for many years, over 100 years, And Hong Kong was a British colony until the year 1997. And we, including me, of course, were educated in the Western tradition and British education system. And so actually, people in Hong Kong and people in the Chinese mainland have experienced pretty different socioeconomic, especially cultural, upbringing. And our context is pretty different, and our way of thinking is very different. So actually, it's not easy, to collaborate. Actually, it takes some time for us to understand. So I would like to share with you the trajectory and how the sense of hope has driven us to go forward, and also the sense of hope has helped us to resolve a lot of challenges and problems in the process. Okay, firstly, I have to very be brief because I'm talking about 30 years in a short period. And the first period is from 1988 to 1990. It's a short period, just 2 years. And that was a period that we were very excited, but on the other hand, later on, get very frustrated because we were not very successful. During that period, I think people from Hong Kong, social workers from Hong Kong were extremely excited to learn of the news that the Chinese mainland is developing, reintroducing social work education to the universities. And we were extremely excited. So we were all, gathered, and we were all volunteering to help in this process. So in 1988, IASSW, Zhu is here, we organized an IASSW seminar on social work education. It was supported by IASSW by a donation. And so we organized, I was the on secretary for IASSW at that time. So we have a working group on relationship with China that we organized this seminar. And we would like to do, through this seminar, we would like to introduce international social work education models to China. And we would like to help China to build connections with international and external communities, including Hong Kong, because at that time it's still not going back to China yet, where Hong Kong has longer history and other countries have longer history of development. So at that time, we were very simplistic because we thought we would like to help, and we would think that the model that we're using in Hong Kong, in Singapore, and in other parts of the world can be transplanted, can be borrowed, can be used. So we were very excited to share, and we volunteer ourselves to help. Okay, and also another thing we have done is that the PolyU was invited by Peking U to help in teaching the subject, Introduction to Social Work. And I and myself and Pauline, the PhD student of Professor Sean. And so the two of us volunteered to help in teaching. Actually, we were pretty good teachers, we thought. And we taught in Hong Kong and other places in Singapore, etc. And our feedback was pretty good. So we taught, and I used the materials, and I remember we prepared it very well. But I think during the discussions, I can see the students were not satisfied. And the teachers were sitting in the classroom to listen to us, especially Professor Wang, And I think they were dissatisfied. And because they thought, these especially the values were not useful to them. The value of self-determination, confidentiality, all these, respecting your independence, etc., etc. All these values that are quite alien to them, because for them, the value of self-determination is something they cannot agree, because usually they make decisions with a clan or with this family, and if somebody got pregnant, for example, or somebody have a problem in university, they usually go to their immediate family or the clan to seek help. But self-determination, etc., etc., is something that they cannot understand. So they raised a lot of questions, and also the processes. They think a little bit the school group work, case work, community work, and they say that we're already doing that in our community. Why do we need social work? Why do we need training? Because we're already doing it in the community. So they raised a lot of very, very critical questions. So we had a discussion among the teachers of both universities. We had a reflection, and we decided that we're not going to teach anymore, because the more we teach, the more problem we might create, and it might not be good for our Chinese friends. So even though I'm very enthusiastic to teach, but we know that we cannot teach, and we are not qualified to teach because we don't know enough to teach. So we have decided to engage in a partnership process to search for the nature and the purpose and the pathway for social work in China together with our friends in the Chinese mainland. I should say Chinese mainland, but China is short up, okay? So we have decided to embark on this journey. So what we did is that in the coming 10 years, we embark on a companionship model. That is, we walk together. We decided to walk together with our friends from Chinese mainland and to search for the nature and purpose. We are just accompanying. We are just companion. We are friends that walk together with them. But they are the one to develop their own model that suits the Chinese context. And we developed a 5-year tripartite academic link project with Nottingham University, PolyU, and Peking University. And the reason why we did that is not because we want to borrow from Nottingham or from England. And Professor Stevenson was extremely helpful. And because we believe in triangulation and dialogue, and we want to use the British models, we visited the community care, et cetera, a lot of services that they are doing. And we engage in a critical dialogue, critical reflection on whether the model that they are using is useful for China. And we're very critical. And every night, I remember we engage in discussions until very, very late. And the most often question we ask, or especially our friends from Chinese mainland ask, is what is social work? What is social work for? And why do we need social work? Why do we need the social work that you are talking about? Why don't we just use the present system that we're using? So what is social work is actually the nature of social work is a critical issue that we have been discussing. And during that period, I think we have engaged in a lot of discussion, dialogue, and we bring our friends from Britain to China, and then the students will critically, ask them a lot of questions. And during that process, I think it shake up the mindset of, all of us. And I think our Chinese colleagues are able to gradually search for the purpose, for the pathway of fulfilling their hope of helping the Chinese people to get out of poverty and to a better way of living. And then I would say that I think these years are arbitrary. And in the year 1999, Chinese mainland introduced a policy to broaden, to expand the recruitment of students. And so suddenly many universities developed social work programs. And so we had a fear because the fact that there are so many new schools of social work in Chinese mainland means that there are not enough teachers, social work teachers. And we are worried that the teachers might just follow the usual track by borrowing books, borrowing notes from overseas, from Hong Kong. Because during that period, we were constantly asked to give our notes to them, to give the books to them so that they can teach. And we were very worried because we know that this is not a good way for the Chinese mainland. So I think we embark on a journey to co-construct social work education and practice models together. Actually, we are just playing one part. Many other people are involved in that process. So our hope is to develop a social work education and practice that is relevant to the local Chinese context. And I think at that period for us in PolyU, what we could offer is that we decided to offer the first IASSW program in the Chinese mainland. And you can see that our aim is to nurture a critical mass of social work leaders to steer the future development of social work education and practice in China. This is an extremely tall order, but we feel that this is a matter of urgency. And originally we were thinking of just having 1 or 2 cohorts, but later on we end up having 7 cohorts because the number of universities offering social work programs keep on increasing. So we were privileged to have the support of the Kazakh Foundation to support us. And we had 7 cohorts, and we graduated 235 students. And these are all social work teachers and senior practitioners, and they are able to lead the future development. And I just want to share a little bit about the teaching and learning approach that we developed. And actually that is informed by the model of hope and transformation that I just shared. For example, we use the critical reflection model in our teaching because we believe that we should not just teach and impart the Western models. And so whether it is psychology, sociology, or whether it's social policy, social work practice, we still have to introduce the Western model or classics, but we encourage a lot of critical reflection and dialogue and use of local case studies to sort of reflect on these models and whether they are suitable for the local context. And so usually we have a lot of arguments. And then particularly the practicum is very useful. And we have summer practicum for around 8 to 10 weeks. And we use a model whereby the students live together for 8 to 10 weeks. They form a small learning community, like 5 or 6 students together. And they work on one particular focus, for example, rural social work, or social work with women, or social work with delinquency, etc. And we use the participatory action research method in this whole process of developing the practicum.
Excuse me,
and through that
5 minutes.
Oh dear, yeah. I'm just halfway, sorry. And so we developed many models, like the community-based mental health model, homeschool community model, occupational social work, rural community development, left behind children, etc., and disaster-oriented model. And I think through the process of involvement, what we have done is that through this process of reciprocal reflection in action, we managed to engage our students and the local community people to evolve models of practice that are useful to them and can bring solutions to the problems that they are facing. Okay? And then finally, in the year 2013, we engaged in a new a stage of development. We call it fellowship, maybe. And that is, we want to evoke the hope of young social work educators to contribute to the future development of social work in China. You may be aware, in the previous stage, we were basically, we take the more responsibility. We are leading together, even though we are working together with them, but we take more responsibility and leadership. But now we are hoping to evoke their hope so that they can take the future leadership. And our way of doing is to develop small projects that they can be involved in. That is, these students, these graduates, they can come up together with their colleagues, proposals of new models of practice that they would like to develop on a certain area. You can see that there are many topics. And then through this process, they develop a practicum for their own students, and also they develop action research in the process, and they develop the model so that this model will be shared with the social work education community, social work community in Chinese mainland. So this is the model that we are now using, and we have already started 18 projects and more will be coming. Okay, so these are some pictures about the models. So I would like to use the final time to talk about one story. I have 3 stories, but I know that I don't have enough time. and how one student following this trajectory of hope and transformation. This is Professor Tiong. He was a graduate of our first cohort, and he's now the president of the Provincial Association of Social Work, and he's interested in rural social development. And I did an interview with him, and firstly I asked why he studied social work, and he said that he's not interested in teaching Chinese. He wanted to know something more, and social work seems to be interesting. And he was involved in a practicum site, the practicum in rural Yunnan, using the capacity model to serve the local community. And actually, when they started, we have not a clue. And the year 2001, we didn't have a clue of what rural social work in China can be like, because in Hong Kong, we have never practiced rural social work. There's no field. And then in China, nobody talk about rural social work. So they are the pioneers. They were involved, and they live in that site together with their teachers and with the villagers. And then I asked him, did your study make any change on you? And he said, yes, I found the future purpose of my life. And actually that resonated with not only him, but many students say so. Because he said that I was searching for my purpose in life and I couldn't find one. But after working in the community with the rural villages, he found that he was changed by the process, and the villagers were changed, and they find common solutions to solve some of the local problems. Gradually, the way of solving those problems increased, and initially it was simple, like using the arts and craft and helping the local women to develop co-op to gain a way of living, etc. So they give, he said that social work can give me the opportunity to do something for society. So this is the future purpose in my life. And he said that social work has the power to bring changes for the people in real life. It is not just talking, but it's in real life. And another classmate of him in the same practicum, he said, I was searching for a purpose in life all along, but could not find it. But during the practicum, I found that social work is so meaningful and powerful and had given me a sense of purpose for my future. So I asked him, how does that change affect him? And he said that work is no longer work. Work is a way to fulfill my ideals, my vision in life. And because he was a dean of a college, a post-secondary college in social work, so he said that I use my ideals and professional standard to manage my school and educate my students. And I asked him about his philosophy, and you can see that it resonates with, the model that we were trying to develop. And actually, he contributed to the evolvement of the model as well. He said that firstly, it must be strongly grounded on practice, that we had to develop the hidden curriculum. And then the students and teachers must be equals, they mix together, and life affects life. That is our own life, our model affects them. They can see whether we are practicing social work. And if we can actualize and practice social work as teachers, then we can influence them. And also he said that he wants to create a culture of growth among the students. And he helped the students to grow and participate in a lot of action research in a community, and then personal growth groups, etc., etc. So he said that he's trying to develop a culture of hope among the students so that these students will carry on as the baton of hope. And finally, I was asking him whether he experienced any difficulties. Like us, we are experiencing difficulty in this COVID. So I asked him whether he experienced difficulty, in fulfilling his hope as a social work journey. And actually, he's actually having great difficulty because he's suffering from a serious illness right now and has to stay home and in his city most of the time, cannot travel. So he said that even though I have illness, but I will still go on. He's trying to do things that he couldn't go to the village. So he's doing things, using his laptop to do counseling for those young people with addiction. different types of addiction. He said that I will continue to help in developing the younger generation of social workers until my last breath. And then he said that during the disaster, the Sichuan disaster, he was involved in the reconstruction. And that was an extremely remote and harsh area that he was in. And then he said that he struggled together, brought a team of students, and they overcome a lot of problems. And the project that they built is now still going on. And also he recruited one youngster from that village and trained him as a social worker. And he has returned to that remote village, remote part of ethnic community, and to take on the baton to be a social worker. So I like his quote. He says that I'm like turtles. I walk slowly, but I know my direction and I will reach my goal eventually. I won't be a rabbit and I cannot, but I can be a turtle and I walk slowly, but I have the direction. I have hope in life. So finally, he said that social work is a powerful source to bring change. And it is a profession that can foster the well-being of people and can bring hope and realistic changes to the community. So I think, you know, I just share with you our trajectory of hope that is shared by us, teachers, students, and the community people. And I think it works. And I think for me, during that process, I've learned so much. And I can see that without hope, education is, you know, has no impact. And then education is not education. So I hope that we as educators can cherish our opportunity to evoke hope among our students, among our community stakeholders, so that we can bring hope to our school, our students, to our community, to our profession, and even to the world, because I think social workers can do so. And I think through the global agenda, it is an extremely good opportunity for us to evoke hope among the people while we are experiencing this hopelessness. I think I have no time to go on to the second story and the third story.
I think the time is up, but I will help you with the question, because the questions that I'm getting is on the implication for really Egypt, for different countries. How will the model, the trajectory be repeated in other countries?
I think every country should have its own trajectory because we are all different. And I think it is the human agency of the social work community that contribute to the development, to the unique trajectory of that particular country or region. But I think there are many commonalities. And I think, firstly, of course, I emphasize on the centrality of hope. That is, if we just do social work as a technician, we just teach the skills, the methods, then it wouldn't lead to anywhere. But if we build up the common direction, focusing on the common goal to raise the standard of quality of life in the community, to solve poverty, etc., etc., and it will inject hope, and then it will develop the social work in that area. And of course, I would like to share. I just go the heading, because I have this section that I have not completed, but I have no time to do so. I think there are several principles that I would like to share with you. 7 principles. The first principle is that we have to share common hope and vision among us, educators, students, and our community people. Second, we have to have genuine trust and respect for each other with among our partners, including our fellow colleagues, our students, and community partners. And we should have genuine trust and respect. And without that, we cannot go forward. And thirdly is shared leadership. Even in the village that I just talked about, where the student, Professor Tier, was enlightened and awakened, I think it is shared leadership together with the local people. The local people and us and the students and the officials, all we share the leadership. And it is through the shared leadership that we can really inject hope and develop the model. And then respect for diversity. We have to respect the differences, and also using the dialogical approach and use of participatory action research process. I personally think that even though we are very different in different countries, but I think the use of participatory action research process is common. And, of course, it is not the only way, but I think this is a very useful way that we have experienced. And I think the use of participatory action research process is good in the development of our own curriculum, development of projects, as well as, the process of building, community building. And I think it has been very useful. I think it's a mindset, and also it's a process that we engage in our everyday life. And finally, humility. And I think Mel Gray, in his article, she talked about the practice of humility. And I think all of us experience that when we are doing international social work. Humility is core and crucial to the development of international social work and to the development of partnerships. Not sure if I answered.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Angie. I think that's the whole idea of social work, bringing hope and also transformation. And your talk has been very inspiring. We will be posting your video online, and there are many good questions, but we cannot take them because our time is up. So let me just thank Angie and also thank Anna Maria for the excellent presentation, and also that we have engaged a poster graphic designer that will put your thoughts and your ideas in pictures, and that will be our present to you, Angie, for the excellent presentation. And
thank you very much.
It leaves me now to conclude, and basically, can you stop share screen already?
Okay. Can I just say one word about the final picture?
Yes.
I would like to share with you that we have a trajectory. Everyone have a trajectory. Every country or region has a trajectory of your own. And I think we just go forth in hope. But there are a lot of roadblocks. You can see that there are tree blocks and whatever. But enjoy the flowers, enjoy the scene, and have joy in this process. And I think if we have hope, then we can drive away the hopelessness. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie.
See you.
All right, so we have come to the conclusion of the first plenary, and tomorrow we will continue with open plenary number 2, where our president from the ICSW will be speaking and having a message, and Professor Walter Lawrence will be sharing the keynote address. So tune in tomorrow, same time, same channel. And to all the YouTube broadcast audience, thank you for joining us as well, and have a good evening, morning, great day and night for all of you. And we know that it's spanning many time zones, but we are glad that you came to a great presentation and a good kickoff.